Good morning and welcome. I am the Reverend Eileen Wiviat, Acting Senior Minister of the Unitarian Church of Evanston. Whether this congregation is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful that you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the comments section, including credits for the readings, to virtual religious education, for donations, and to be added to our email newsletter list. The all-church Zoom meeting continues every Wednesday at 5:30, and we send a reminder email in the afternoon on Wednesday with the link to that gathering. Please join us. It's a really nice way to stay connected with the larger community. Hope to see you there. And we hold a virtual coffee and conversation time after this service. You can find that link also in the comments or the show more section below. You still have a few days to submit your suggestions for organizations to share our offering with. Please see the link below for that as well. I'm so happy to welcome my friend and colleague, the Reverend Chip Roush, today to preach for us. He serves the First Unitarian Church of South Bend. Welcome, Reverend Roush.
Good morning. My name is Chip Roush. I bring you greetings from the First Unitarian Church of South Bend. I am grateful to Reverend Eileen for inviting me. It's been a while since I spoke at UCE. It is good to be with you today. Our opening words are excerpted from Beginners by Denis Levertov. Not yet, not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. Today and every day, may we be more aware of the spirit of life, budding, blossoming, and evolving through us. So may we be.
We light this chalice, those of us in Northern Illinois, on the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, also call this area home. We name these in honor and respect.
We light our chalices this morning as beacons of hope, signs of our continuing quest for truth, goodness, and beauty. May our reason and our passion be likewise kindled, that our very lives become beacons to all people.
Please join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
It was many, many years ago, after Noah and all that rain. The earth soon dried up and the people built a city again. And they all spoke one, and it didn't take very long. They decided to build a tower, to build it tall and strong. Well, they slapped down all that tar and they covered every brick. They built up mighty walls, they made them strong and thick. They worked all day and night till it reached up to the clouds, and it made the people happy and oh so very proud. But don't you get too proud, don't you be rocking that cradle, and don't you ever, 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 ever forget the Tower of Babel. Then the Lord looked down from heaven, and he wasn't very pleased. These folks think they can do anything, and they don't think they need me. I told them to move far and wide, to scatter across the land. They gathered in one one city, that wasn't what I planned. So the Lord mixed up their tongues, and the people were perplexed. They couldn't understand each other, and guess what happened next? They never finished that tower, and they scattered across the land. And eventually it all worked out just the way that God had planned. So don't you get too proud, don't put your horse in that stable, and don't you ever forget the Tower of Babel. Pardon-moi, what's that do? No comprende, what's that dude? No entiendo, no capiche. Say what, that begreift ich nie. Now I guess you might be wondering, what's the moral of this tale? Well, if you don't include God in your plans, then buddy, your plans will fail. Now God wants to be a part of every dream and every task. He's waiting for an invitation, so don't be too proud to ask. And don't you get too proud, don't you get stuck with that label. And don't you ever forget the Tower of Babel. Pardon-moi, what's that do? No comprende, what's that dude? No entiendo, no capiche. Say what, that begreift ich nie. So don't you get too proud, don't get stuck with that label. And don't you ever forget the Tower of Babel.
These are the joys and sorrows that have been submitted through the Google form found on our homepage of our website. If you'd like to add messages to be shared with the congregation, you can find it there, or you can always email me if that's a little bit more challenging. But these are the ones that have been submitted today. Rose Baldwin and Bill Hayward are overjoyed to welcome their grandson, Quinn Jacob Hayward, born on July 16th. Quinn weighed in at 9 pounds, 14 ounces, a full 3 pounds heavier than brother Tyler. We're grateful to Rose's midwifery colleagues at Swedish Hospital for guiding Quinn safely into the world. Congratulations. Vickie Deebly asks for prayers and healing thoughts for a member of her family by choice, 96-year-old Irene, who broke her hip Saturday and is in the hospital awaiting surgery on Monday. Our prayers are with you and Irene, Vickie. And Diane Markle requests healing energy and prayers as her family is impacted by COVID. Brennan Baker asks us to keep him in our thoughts and prayers because he's having another surgery on August 13th. This will be his 4th surgery and he is very nervous. And Kristen Larson shares that her husband Craig was put on life support following a biopsy, and yesterday had an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device, implanted. He made it through the more than 9-hour surgery, and in the surgeon's words, much better than expected. Craig is not out of the woods, but 2 of the 3 issues he was suffering from are now resolved. Kristen welcomes your thoughts, your prayers, and cards, but no calls at this time. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts, and so we take a moment of quiet to read to ourselves the joys and sorrows that you enter into the chat below. We hold these together in care and in tenderness. And I invite you from your homes to say aloud the names of those who are most on your heart, those who are sick or who have died. We let their names gather on the winds to be held in this community that knows no walls and no boundaries. We hold these joys and sorrows. Together we share our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Source of love, beautiful mystery beyond naming, we join together in spirit, though we are separated by physical distance, grateful for the ability to access that which is greater than any one of us. We lament the pain, suffering, and cruel indifference on display in our world and in communities close and far. We mourn the loss of so many to illness, violence, and neglect. We cry out against abusive power and incompetent leadership, which keeps the status quo and systems of oppression in place. And we celebrate the courage that comes to those who would speak truth to power and use their voices to speak of love and justice. We ask for the wherewithal to resist the corrosive lure of division, fear, and hate. Give us strength to turn our resistance into revolution, to transform the breaking down of so much in society to the building up of a more beautiful and whole world. Keep our sights set on, keep our faith strong that that is possible. Remind us, Spirit of life, of the redemptive power of truth and love. Remind us that we are one with all beings and with the earth. Guide us as we work to keep learning and growing. Guide us as we seek the well-being of all. Let our voices, still and small when alone, join in powerful harmony, lifting every voice in a chorus of resounding love. May it be so. May we strive ever to make it so.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
Leslie Takahashi was born in New Jersey in 1962. She serves the Mount Diablo UU Church in Walnut Creek, California, and is the chair of our UUA's Commission on Institutional Change. This is excerpted from a Facebook post she made on May 6th, 2020. I am increasingly struck by the lack of public mourning. My expression, every life is hope incarnate. Every human life is a possibility awaiting fulfillment. Every person is the complexity that defies metaphor. Every life is precious, and none should pass unnoticed. They will tell you that your value lies in buying and in spending. Breathe into the truth. Your currency is in your heartbeat and the silly twist at the corner of your smile and your passion for sunrises. They will tell you that you cannot exist without freedom of consumption. Breathe into the truth. We measure our lives not in human doing, rather in human being. Each life is beyond containment, beyond price. Our worth is measured in possibility. So may we be.
UCE remains a vital part of the world and our community, and because we continue to need one another in the blessings of community, we take this time to invite you to give to our shared plate offering. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. You can text to give, send in a check, or give from our website. If you send a check, please indicate on the memo line what the check is for.
Today's offering is Deborah's Place, which opens doors of opportunity for women experiencing homelessness in Chicago. You can read more about Deborah's Place in the Show More section below. And remember that there's still time to get your shared plate suggestions in. Before we go to our musical piece, Gregory asked if he could do a quick video introduction of the piece that he chose, and of course, I obliged.
Today I decided to play for you a love song, which is a movement from African Sanctus, the best-known work of a British composer and collector of world music David Fanshawe. African Sanctus is an unorthodox setting of the Latin Mass, harmonized with traditional African music, recorded by the composer on his journeys up the River Nile in 1969. In African Sanctus, the recorded music from Egypt, Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya is heard in counterpoint with the live chorus, soprano soloist, and instrumental ensemble. In this work, the composer's idea was to prove that in music there is no language barrier, and music from different cultural traditions can be combined together in order to create harmony. In the piece you're going to hear now, the piano part is juxtaposed with a singer from East Sudan that accompanies himself on an ethnic harp.
Sovatoya stodanoti nanaike. Halavia shindaleya kajalo giribi. Itamures bunuganta bunugshishibiti. The Babu, the Babu, the Sukaroitabu. He have the Irte, Tasamiti, Marai Polifa. He the Marabu, Toy Balor, Irte Fire. Takulit elai vala wisna ifadeva galgama. If sa e hadi valete shobanogdal fadganate. If sa e hadi valete shobanogdal fadganate.
And now for some awkward Zoom interactivity. How many of us have heard the story of the Tower of Babel? How many heard that God dispersed the humans and changed our language because we were too prideful? That's what I was taught as a child. And at that point in my life, it made sense to me. I sometimes got in trouble for being too proud. Why wouldn't our human ancestors? Since then, I have learned other interpretations of this story with more progressive and or more nuanced understandings of our human condition. That's one of the reasons why it's important to study Bible stories. These stories are an important part of the ideological DNA of our culture. Whether or not we believe in a God, this is a conversation about humans and humane values that we've been engaged in for thousands of years. Biblical literacy helps us to understand the conversation more fully. We get a sense of how the ideas have evolved over at least 100 generations of Western history. And we can notice when those stories are being skewed or misinterpreted by our current conversation partners. For example, the idea that the Tower of Babel story includes an angry God punishing humans for their hubris, dispersing them across the earth because of their pride at building a big city and a tall tower. That's a very specific point of view about the nature of God, the nature of human beings, and the relationship between them. One might even think that the people who told the story that way had an agenda of their own. They were trying to keep the peasants meek and in their place, especially since that interpretation is not supported by the actual text. Words like pride and hubris are simply not in the original story in the 11th chapter of Bereshit, or as Christians know it, the book of Genesis. One of the many benefits of attending Meadville Lombard Theological School is the ability to take classes from a dozen other seminaries and from the University of Chicago Divinity School. My Hebrew Bible professor at the Div School, the late Tikva Frymer-Kinsky. When she read from the original Hebrew, translating on the fly, she pointed out the story does not say God is angry, and it never implies the people were punished for their pride. Frymer-Kinsky taught that the Tower of Babel was a test, and that we humans passed God's test. We demonstrated that we were smart enough to do significant architectural engineering and savvy enough to communicate, cooperate, and delegate in an effective manner. God had always planned for humans to grow in intelligence and then spread out over the world. Once we had built most of a giant tower, we had demonstrated our proficiency and could level up to the next challenge facing us. What might our society be like if that were our common understanding of God, instead of the angry, punishing deity in the story I was taught? Just recently, I heard of another interpretation. A local rabbi related a midrash, an ancient commentary on the Hebrew scriptures, which explains the story of the Tower of Babel like this. When a worker would fall from the scaffolding around the tower, the other workers were not allowed to stop or to mourn their fallen comrade. They were forced to continue laboring. But when a brick fell from the tower and broke, then there was a work stoppage, and the waste of materials was called out and decried. According to this midrash, the moral of the story is to not value material goods over the value of human lives. Here again, we see a vision of the deity as angry, but it's anger based in compassion. This is the ancient Hebrew version of God telling us humans, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Over 2,500 years ago, our spiritual ancestors wrote into their precious books of wisdom that we are called to love our human cousins more than we love material objects. For 100 generations or more, we've been using these stories to teach our children that there will always be those who value power and wealth and our higher values, our compassion and mercy. In our generation, our version of the Tower of Babel story might be told like this. We intelligent human beings have built a complex global economy with multiple levels of abstraction in which every day a towering pile of money gets traded, but we seem to care more about the rise and fall of abstract indices like the Dow Jones, the FTSE, or the Hang Seng, and less about the health and well-being of the workers who actually produce the goods being traded. As Leslie Takahashi wrote, our value does not lie in buying and in spending. Our life is beyond containment, beyond price. Our worth is measured in possibility. We hear news reports debating the merits of saving the economy from the effects of the pandemic, of opening the economy up, or saving human lives. This is a false distinction. We have to do both. We humans need our health, and we need jobs and stores and recreational activities. If we prioritize the economy opening things too rapidly with too little concern for the workers, then the whole thing will collapse as the pandemic crashes over us in waves. If we listen to our ancestral human wisdom and prioritize human lives, then we will develop a slow but strong and sustainable recovery which will benefit more of us. This is not a left-wing conspiracy dreamed up just this summer to make one particular leader look bad. It is one application of some of our oldest and most treasured wisdom. And these ancient biblical stories are so full of human wisdom that they can speak to multiple issues all at the same time. If bricks are not more important than workers in the original story, if the economy is not more important than the workers who are part of it, then buildings and products and concepts like orderly protest are not more important than the lives of our Black siblings and cousins. One of the more recent additions to this side of the conversation came from U.S. District Judge R. Brooke Jackson. In early June, Judge Jackson issued a restraining order preventing the Denver police from using chemical weapons or projectiles against peaceful protesters. He wrote, "If a store's windows must be broken to prevent a protester's facial bones from being broken or eye being permanently damaged, that is more than a fair trade. If a building must be graffitied to prevent the suppression of free speech, that is a fair trade." End quote. Judge Jackson said if high-ranking police leaders were eyewitnesses to extensive damage being done, then they could use tear gas or rubber bullets, but even then, the projectiles should be bounced off the ground and must not be aimed at a person's head, groin, or back. I welcome Judge Jackson's ruling, and based on human experience, we humans do not always follow all the rules. There are already guidelines that indicate how and when rubber bullets are to be used. And there are too many stories of people who lost limbs or eyes because of the over-exuberant use of rubber bullets by law enforcement officers. So please be careful out there. If you choose to join your solitude in the communion of struggle, then do take care of yourself and take care of those around you. As Assata Shakur wrote, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." What does it look like to love and support each other? In these days of COVID-19, it includes wearing face masks, even at open-air public demonstrations, maintain social distance insofar as possible. And here is the harder part. If you are a white person going to a protest, here are 2 tweets explaining what our Black cousins are asking of us. Use your privilege to protect people who are actually at risk. De-escalate. Anger is justified, but do not center this around yourself. Being violent and trying to get arrested is the least helpful thing you can do. And if you are at these protests trying to be an ally, your jobs are 1, defer to the Black people leading the protest, 2, protect Black and brown people by being a human shield, 3, keep an eye on your skin folk, some of whom might be undercover cops or outside agitators. My role at a Black Lives Matter protest, as I understand it, is to do what the Black leaders tell me to do, including and especially to place my white body between their Black bodies and any violence being perpetrated by the police. If you need to read more and have discussions in order to learn and understand why this is so, that's fine. And it is insufficient in and of itself. White folks do not read about and discuss these issues only to become more educated and urbane. We do the reading and the talking so we can do the real work of protecting those on the margins with our white bodies. Because people are more precious than things. For 2,500 years, we've been teaching that lives are more valuable than buildings. Maybe this is the year when we finally demonstrate that. So may we be.
As the Talmadge family extinguishes the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, We carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
We are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care.
Sometime this week, when we most need it, may we remember that lives are more precious than things, and may we take one more step toward the liberation of all. So may we be.